Yes, fine, actually. So welcome to Field Force Book Club, everybody. Great to have you here. We are careering towards the end of the 15 recommended books by Anne Wilson. We'll finish next month, will be the last one of hers, Deep Work, on her
Yeah.
list. Then we've got an additional one at our Christmas quiz, and then we'll be embarking into new territory of books which I'm going to co-suggest with you. So I'll take your views as well, and then we'll agree on a program for next year. Those that would like to continue along similar themes, still wealth focused, but I'd like to have it so it covers similar territory, but kind of deepens perhaps into or deepens into the lineage of where these ideas have come from, all with the same idea that we're taking Anne Wilson, the Welsh chef, her work as foundation, and we're looking at where these ideas have come from around money and wealth and life. So, welcome tonight to Field Force Book Club, and we've got Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel that we're discussing tonight. It was we've got our copies. Not
Oh,
not much kindling going
full
on, is there?
house.
Full house, woohoo!
Wow, surprise.
So it's published in 2020. We've been reading it in 2025, so it's 5 years after it was published. It's had over 8 million copies sold, and it's got all sorts of bro code on the front of recommendations. You know, James Clear, who we've read, Tim Ferriss, who we've read, also Daniel Zweig, Jason Zweig, who wrote part of the contemporary version of the Intelligent Investor uh, kind of commentary. So big kind of players have commented on this book saying how amazing it is, destined to become a modern classic, um, very, very powerful, fast paced, saying things haven't been said before, graceful clarity. So very interested what you thought. I don't know that I particularly share those views. What he does do, which I think is very good and very clear, is he sets out a very clear structure for how this book is written, and I think it's very easy to read. Because of that, but also a deliberate kind of mechanism he has with how he does it. And there's a nice little segue at the end of each chapter to say, and now we're going to do this. So it's quite fluid that way. There is one part at the beginning where he says, where he brags about how short it is. It's not a long book. You're welcome. Most readers don't finish the books they begin because most single topics don't require 300 pages of explanation. So this is in contrast to Anthony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, which was over 500 pages,
Yeah.
which was very different in terms of the quality of what was expressed and the depth of it. So those are just starting points. I found it slightly cocky, really, him saying it's not a long book, you're welcome, and I found that a little bit off-putting. But I did read it all very easily, and there I shall leave my comments and hold back from saying what I really felt until I hear what you made of it.
Um, I love reading books, and this book is not among the best books I have written. It has been on my list for years, and just bought it a year ago when we bought all the books for the book club here. Um, I'm not disappointed, but it looks like it's kind of articles from a magazine or a newspaper or something like that that is put together and synced so they refer to each other, etc. But still, if you have a newspaper or somewhere, a Motley Fool, where he mentions here on the back, where such articles are presented, you have to have a point. You have to have a good content. Otherwise, people will drift away. So I think the main thing of this book is it's very good content. It make you think. Um so that's what my first impression.
Thank you, Marie Louise.
I have to fess up that I literally started it about 2 hours ago. Um,
Well,
Be-
confess, Mandy. Thanks for
because
being so honest.
I'm
Oh,
halfway through it, and I'm halfway through it, and I think that says a lot.
yeah.
Um, I bought it back in the sometime. I think I knew it was coming up, and then I'd forgotten I'd got it, and it was sitting on a shelf, and I'd forgotten it was book club, and I saw your email. And I thought, oh God, so I've been on holiday and all sorts, and then I thought, I'm sure I bought this book. And I went and found it. It was on my shelf. And I thought, okay, well, I've got, we were taking the dog out for a walk. I thought, okay, I've got 2 hours when I get back. I'll see how far I get. And I've got to chapter 10.
Wow,
Oh,
So
good on you.
it is very readable. Um, I must admit, I found myself thinking, I'm sure I've read half of this before. So I don't know whether it's just that he's repeating stuff I've already read, whether a lot of the sort of examples and anecdotes he gives are ones that I've already read. Um, I just found myself thinking, I've had real deja vu looking at this and thinking, have I read it before? Because I
yeah.
don't think I have, but maybe I have because so much of it is recognizable.
I think he
Um,
repeats himself some. It's my impressions too, Mandy.
But I think like a lot of the like the stories of Jesse Livermore and the stories of Bernie Madoff, and I knew, so I don't know where I know them from, but I already knew them. Um, but I like the way he kind of puts it together, and this how like this whole thing. I think it may be because in at some level he also relates. I relate what he's talking about very much to. Um, both what Anne says and also things like The Millionaire Next Door.
Mm,
What
mm,
he's talking about is the antithesis of The Millionaire Next Door and all the reasons why people don't become the millionaire next door.
mm,
But I think it's what I particularly like about it is the way that he kind of makes it. It's he kind of says there's a lot of good reasons why people don't become wealthy and he kind of not doesn't make excuses for people, but kind of puts it into the context of all the reasons why you might not become wealthy, whether that's things like the idea of when you grew up as where you grew up, when you grew up, which time period you grew up in, and therefore what your life experience was,
Mm.
and not just in terms of that. I think it's in chapter 1 or 2, not just whether or not you grew up in a relatively, wealthy or impoverished background, but also at what point in history. And I hadn't really kind of thought that one through before. The idea that if you were born in 1960 or born in 1990, your experience of how money grows is very, very different just because of what was happening in the world at the time. Um, and I also like the point about, that he kind of goes back to the whole sort of Warren Buffett thing and says, basically 95% of what this guy has made, he's made since the age of 65. But he started it at 10. And I think, well, I'm not sure if that makes me happy or depressed, sort of. I've been really enjoyed it, but I do find a lot of it thinking, I'm sure I have actually read this. So whether he's just pulled together lots of other people's ideas and then put his own spin on it, I'm not sure.
mm. Okay.
That's the reason why I said it must have been published somewhere in a newspaper or in
Mm.
a newsletter site back office or something like that, and then spread to the newspaper, financial part of the newspaper, etc. So I think it's still good content, but it's all put in the same jar and mixed around, and they made reference from chapter to chapter, etc., but almost have the same content. And because of that, it repeats itself sometimes. It said the same thing it had in a previous chapter. Sometimes he referred to it, sometimes he repeated in another words, etc. So, but I still think repetition is good. So it's not a bad thing. But yeah, and
But
you
you, Alice.
and you are not crazy. I like that aspect.
Well, I finished the book, but I listened to it, so it's quite interesting. I think it's different from reading it because, and I listened to it very much with thinking, he does not exactly repeat what Anne says, but it's the same message all the time, and it's there is no one thing, and it is about continuous compounding, compounding and
Saving.
yeah, and saving and in fact, all the books have the same messages. It's like take some money for you and invest it and save it and don't touch it and keep doing it, even if it's just £1 or a penny. Just keep doing it. And I found it was more the working with the habit of repeating and doing the same thing that came through in the book. And I liked the fact that I recognized what he was saying, that maybe I'd heard it before or read it somewhere else or somebody else has shared it. But I kind of like that because I thought, yes, I'm in the right echo chamber of the things that are what I should be doing with my money, and the psychology of money of keeping me calm with it. It's just that I am on there. I'm doing the right thing. I'm in control of it more than I was when I first started Anne's program or reading these books. So yeah, I really enjoyed it for that reason.
Oh, well done, Alison. Welcome, Elena. Nice to see
Hello.
you. We're talking about this book, The Psychology of Money,
Okay.
which is the one for this week. So just join in whenever and however you like with any thoughts you have. It doesn't matter, if you haven't read this at the time, you're very welcome. And this is being recorded as well, so I hope you're okay with that. So I'll dig in then now with my thoughts.
Oh,
I hold myself back. I wonder if he's good pals with James Clear, because like James Clear, who's also a very popular lad, also I felt was somewhat vacuous in what he said. And I just wonder if this is a bit of a bro code that how many women have we got quotes from of this? Just one, for instance, Annie Duke, who's a professional poker player. I thought she'd be interesting to look at. But it just seems a bit of self-congratulating about things. I mean, bursting with original ideas. No, it's not. I read this book. It was easy to read. I kind of enjoyed it-ish as I was going through. But then after reading it, and I finished reading it quite some time ago, I thought, well, what am I left with actually? Because if we compare it to other books we've read, like The Richest Man in Babylon, Why Smart People Make Money Mistakes and How to Correct Them, The Millionaire Next Door, all books that we happen to have read before, Eleanor, on this reading list that we have. To me, those particular books, which cover similar topics, left me with such a rich feeling. They left me with a feeling I could go back into those. I mean, somebody's describing this book as a wealth classic, a new wealth classic. They're just lying. This isn't the psychology of money, I don't think. I don't think there's much psychology in here at all. I think this title is a lie. I think what he does do very well, like you said, Mandy, is that he talks about time and puts things in a context. I think he does that very well. He's talking about, say, how people would have felt with the depression, different rates to do with risk and interest. And I think at the end, he talks about how, as a society globally, the proportion of debt we've become so much more comfortable with carrying. And I think that kind of thing is brilliant. And I love that. I just wish he'd called it like a socioeconomic history of changing attitudes to money over time, which isn't a sexy title and might not have sold 8 million, but I think it would be more accurate and have better expectations. I hear what you're saying, Alison, with it being reinforcement of some of Anne's work. But the way he does that, I thought was quite dour, was quite unexciting, not passionate, not inspiring. You know, we should say for the sake of it. Why? I wasn't convinced by his argument for saving, even though I do agree saving is necessary. I didn't feel inspired by it. I just felt there was some of this, you should do this, you should do that. And I felt, you know, if we look at something like the why people make big money mistakes, smart people make money mistakes, to me, that really got to the psychology of what drives behavior around finance. And basically, this says emotion does. And here we've got this kind of pseudo rationality. It's not a true rationality, it's like a pseudo rationality. And it left me feeling, yeah, so what? Which I was surprised, given that you know, it was easy to read. So those are kind of my views of it
I
so
found
far.
myself, you know, given that it's sold however many millions, and I think this maybe taps into what you're saying, Sarah. I think it's very much kind of written for the sort of bro side, and I did find myself wondering. I wonder how the numbers, how the book sales compare to The Wealth Chef, which actually came out several years earlier and to my mind is a much more practical guide while also putting together a lot of the, you know, a lot of what Anne talks about is to do with is how people's spending habits reflect how they feel, how their own histories, but also gives you very practical tools with which to kind of break those habits if they're not good or build on if they are good. And I actually wonder whether the title of, you know, the title The Wealth Chef, the fact it's written by a woman immediately makes women more likely to buy it. I may be wrong, but I wonder if it's less likely to become that top selling classic in terms of worldwide appeal, because how many women do buy books aimed at money?
That's such an interesting point, Mandy. Really is. And I think he talks in the book. One there were some things I found interesting in what he says. One was about tailwind, which is basically, I mean, a lot of what he says is like it's kind of safety, a mediocre safety way of living. I mean, at one stage he says, "Oh, don't be too flashy," and all of this. I thought, well, why not? If you want to be flashy, that's. And I think the way Anne Wilson talks about things is do what you want. You know, do what excites you and fund it, you know, be organized around it, but do whatever the hell you want, you know, because it's you. Whereas this takes this kind of mealy mouthed kind of approach to life, I felt safe, effective, perhaps, but not a life of passion or anything. Whereas when he talks about tailwind, he talks about anomalies that kind of come in and kind of really take something off. And he said there was a lot of tailwind in how this book got distributed or some part of it. So I would love to hear a lot more about that from him as well. And I also do wonder, you know, who is just like you say about women and money and wealth and talking about it, writing about it, reading about it. And I mean, this is why we've got this book club. I mean, men are welcome too, but it happens to have been only women that have come. But I really want that we make it normal and encourage women to talk about money and women to take charge of money and to know about it because there's no reason why we can't. And also, you know, the idea that men have got it all sorted out is a great pressure on men that isn't true either, you know. So it's very in that spirit of that.
It's interesting because I think I mean it comes up quite a lot when in FFU and wealth builders when people are talking about, you know, whether or not they should stick with a financial advisor or stick with managed funds, and without Anne actually saying completely ditch them, she often sort of gently encourages people towards the point that they realize they can ditch financial advisors. I find it interesting because I'm also part of the apprentices group. You know, we did Anne's apprentice training to be financial coaches, And we still meet up, you know, online to talk about money things. And also obviously just as a catch up. But I think what's very interesting is that thought of it, the joy of being able to just meet up and it's not all about making more money. A lot of it is about wealthy living as opposed to rich living. You know, so I mean, you know, sort of like people just for example, house sitting. So rather than having to spend, you know, a large part of their income on living where they want to live, they live where they want to live because they're house sitting for somebody else. You know, and that can be a very valid life choice. And I just think you know, it comes back to what you were saying, Sarah, about this is one of the things that Anne talks about. You know, I mean, her classic phrase is whatever blows your skirt up. You know, it's making sure that it's your choice, though, isn't it? It's making sure that it's the choice for something that you want, not feel that you should. And that, I think, is the key thing.
I agree with you, Mandy. I agree with you. I think Anne's book is more like a manual. This is more like short stories here, and what must be common knowledge among men who is interested in finance, but not like Warren Buffett type, but person, whoa, I need to look after my money, sort of things. Uh, and I think that's the reason why it sold so many. It's because it's an easy read. That's people cannot know it beforehand, but if enough people read it, then it's spread to 6 million copies. It's an amazing number, but I
8
think
million, mine. 8 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over
the update.
sorry, sorry, over 8 million perhaps. But I think it's because it's too easy. If you want to do like Anne do, you have to have a manual like the Welsh chef.
Does it having not read it all the way through, does it get more practical as it goes along, or is it
Uh,
all
No,
no?
no.
but it has a one
Just
of
cheat, Mandy, and read the summary on All Together Now, and you'll see really what he's saying in 2 pages, which
and
is basically take it easy, don't be too extreme. Um, just be safe, live safely, which I mean, I think one good point he makes in the book is to do all of these things. And as other people have mentioned about the effects of compounding, you need time to have the effect of compounding, and compounding is what creates wealth. But to have that, you need to survive. And so I think what he does reinforce about Anne's work, just to let you know, Eleanor, we refer to Anne Wilson a lot. Who wrote The Wealth Chef, and quite a lot of us, all of us actually, have been doing training in her program called Financial Freedom University. So she devised this book recommendations, which is what we've been following. This is number 14 of 15 of them that we've been working through. So that's we're referring to her. But it's I think there's something that's so safe about it. It doesn't really there's something absent about the excitement of what you want to do, and the juice of life, the like you said about blowing your skirt up. But I think what is good that he reinforces about Anne's work is how you can stuff it up and don't stuff it up, you know. And Anne has things in place, how we can wreck things for ourselves, how we need to protect ourselves from ourselves psychologically, emotionally, with financial decisions. He doesn't really go into that, but he just says you need to be able to survive. And I think his strategy for that is to just be very mediocre in the decisions. You know, he says
I
don't
can
go.
see you really liked it.
I
Sorry to
think
be harsh, but
I think in that though he's very blinkered, isn't he? About he's just like stay on this track and do this thing and don't see the exciting stuff here and get derailed. Just stay there. I
I,
agree with that. Yeah.
I
I
wonder if
think
it
I'd
also,
love to. Sorry.
I wonder if it also reflects though where he was coming from it, which was as as a young man living in LA, that he was surrounded by demonstrations of conspicuous, well, rich living, and therefore, and how he realized that quite often those people weren't actually wealthy; they were just living rich. And
Sure.
that's very much reflects his kind of take on it. Um, whereas I think what strikes me with that, what you get with Anne is what somebody's lived through to get to where they are now.
Mm.
And I think you can, if you read Anne's book, you could become quite wealthy just by doing what she says.
And and yet in here he says, well, at the end I'll tell you what I did with my money, but I'm just telling you what you should do, which is a completely different approach. And he also says, don't copy people with what they've done. Whereas people like Anne, people like Anthony Robbins will say, yes, copy what we've done because we've done it. And we'll give you a shortcut to do it because we've gone through a lot of mistakes. So copy what we do if you want to do what we do. And so some of that I found quite different from what Anne says as well, which is interesting.
Is that from Why Smart People Make Money Mistakes?
That's from The Wealth Chef by Anne Wilson.
Ah, then
S- s- So she's our
Our guru.
guide, our guru. She's our guru, but she's also a great laugh, and she's a multimillionaire, and she teaches people how to become wealthy and live a wealthy life, and she does it in a really fascinating way.
Okay, I
And
will
I
read
think I
that
think
one.
we're all converts because I mean that certainly for me, I'd never, before I met Anne, I had no concept of any of this at all.
Same.
I think I'd made a few good choices by luck more than by judgment, and I had saved very hard in terms of my contributions to my pension. That's the bit I got right,
Well
but
done.
but that was just because that's what I did, I mean, and I didn't do it in the sense of a kind of conscious decision. It was just that I was in a profession that had a pension attached, and I made the conscious choice to contribute to it maximally. Because that was easy because it all came out before I saw it. But what I did with the money I got was rubbish. And I think, I'd never heard of Warren Buffett. Now that's kind of like trips off the tongue, but I'd never heard of Warren Buffett.
It is a whole world to itself, isn't it? And when you get into it, there seems to be not that many players. And I think the fact that, that we can critique this book and have opinions about it, it's because of the books we've already read. I mean,
Mm.
I wouldn't have had any opinions about this book 2 years ago. Never mind read it, but I wouldn't really think that much of it. But because I've read The Richest Man in Babylon, which is so rich in storytelling, so rich in
Mhm.
inspiration, rules about gold, stories, rich stories that stay with you, things about the goddess of good luck. I mean, this guy is so uninspiring about luck or anything like that. He's just dull. Fine, that's kept him safe. It sold him 8 million copies. Everybody wants psychology. It's not challenging, is it? Psychology is easy. It's mental. There's no heart in this. And to me, it's the heart that gets me to do stuff. That's me personally. But I think the fact we even have opinions about this
Mm.
book, the fact that we've read, The Millionaire Next Door, for instance,
I mean,
to
that's my
me,
personal favorite, I must admit.
yeah. And also, if you want to look at frugality and the inspiration of a frugal way of life, I think The Millionaire Next Door is a great way of conveying those concepts, about living below your means, not because you should, which is what, Morgan Housel talks this should. It's saying the smart way of doing it, the smart way of generating wealth, and all the different reasons we had laughs about, people not getting their hair cut and all of that. And then the other, they also talk about time and then Millionaire Next Door, like the generation underneath would say, well, I'm bloody getting my hair cut. I'm not sitting around a table with a bowl, to save money. I'm going to have the biggest, most expensive hair, just that kind of generational thing. I think with Morgan Housel here, there were some things, that he's really excellent on about wealth is what you don't see and what you don't spend. And I just wish he'd really gone into that, because I think that's great and it's very true. But even that, I feel he holds back. Maybe because, it's a short story format. He just wants, to be pithy and effective. And, like you, Mandy, you're already all the way through almost the book. So it's effective. He gets his message across. I just like to take him on a roller coaster or something, or, just get his adrenaline going about something with, well, but, he can afford to do whatever he wants, can't he? I'm sure he's doing very well for himself with all of that.
It'd be interesting to know what he's doing now.
I think he's going to write a follow-up book with all the things he's missing in this book. I hope. But
he's written other books, I don't know before or after, which seemed quite interesting from the titles, but I haven't looked at those too much.
Oh, I'm not been inspired to read more of him.
No.
Here.
No. But
I listened to him while I was doing mundane tasks, and I wonder whether that just it kind of worked with what I was doing. So like doing the washing up or hanging the washing out, and which is so down his lane of don't be risky, don't be exciting, just play the safe game. Interesting, yeah.
Intriguing. So
yeah, I wonder if I was listening to it when I was out walking, like hiking or something, and it was like a hill or a hard climb, and you've got somebody who's going, "Oh no, play it easy, don't do anything risky." Whether it would have irritated me, when you're trying to find all your energy to get at something, and someone saying, "Oh no, don't go out of the middle lane or the slow lane."
who would you like to listen to when you're going up a hard hill, Alison, that we've perhaps read already? Who would get you up that hill?
I must admit, you've read more than me, and quite often I've not even started any, but I don't know. Irritatingly, probably because I don't like him very much. I can't even remember his name.
You hate him that much, you can't.
Find the dragon within him. Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I think he might irritate me enough to make me stomp a bit.
Oh, he's a sweetheart, I think, actually, Alison. I said last time my view that I'd had of him 20 years ago, which I totally changed when I read that last book. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it'd be very interesting if you do
I
read
still
him,
got
what
the
you think of him now.
cellophane on it. I was skipping it.
And I've never read him.
And
I
it's
have
still
never
got the
read him.
cellophane on it.
Get that cellophane ripped off, Alison. Awaken the cellophane within.
Yeah.
Take a risk. Don't be too Housel about it. Branch out and rip that cover off.
Let Tony Robbins out. I couldn't listen to him on audio. He'd just drive me crazy.
Awaken the giant within the rap.
Okay.
How you doing, Elena?
I have written down books to read. I have homework now.
I can send you a list.
Yes, I'm like, yeah, I need to read this one. I need to read this one too. This one, no.
Well, these are our opinions. You might love some of these. So, the whole point is you make up your own mind and we thresh it out.
Can I ask Elaine, at what point are you sort of coming from? Because we're all and converts. How have you come to the book club?
It's not a cult, by the way, Elena.
Well, I got invited and I thought it was a very interesting thing to join, so why not? Yes, and I also I like reading, and I'm into chasing wealth. So any information is good to know, and yeah, so why not?
Fantastic.
Yeah, meet new people too.
Yeah.
Where are you in the world?
Elena, then you need to read
The Wealth Chef. Yeah, I wrote it down.
The black version. There's a previous. This is second version. So
Okay.
be careful.
Okay, what's the difference? From the
Uh,
second.
it's
She just revised it and made it much more. I mean, her original version she self-published, and then that was the version that came out when she was taken up by Random House. And
Oh,
it's there's more depth to it. There's more of it, and it's just much more professionally produced.
oh, okay.
I can send you some links, Helena, as well, for some free
Yes.
courses she does as well, if you'd like that.
Oh, yes, please. Yes. I was also like wondering, like, because you have been criticizing this book quite a bit, and I felt like, is it maybe marketing? Like a very good marketing strategy to sell
What?
so many books because it worked for him.
Yes. Well, I think if you previously we read James Clear,
Mm.
The Power of Atomic Habits, and he talks
Okay.
about well, I personally thought that book was very bland and banal, but it's extremely popular and he's done very, very well. And he's just, I think what's interesting about that book is how he marketed it because it was very specific who he went to and it kind of was organic growth within certain groups. Was it surfers or there was some, I'd like to look more about how he did it, but he had that. And the fact that Morgan Housel says about Tailwind and how this book was developed or distributed fascinates me, and I think that might be one of the most interesting things about him actually is how he worked to create it, or how this tailwind, which basically he talks about in this book, which is about where there's an outlier that somehow does phenomenal success that you can't necessarily anticipate and will come along and change everything. I mean, for instance, if we look at the role of AI, how AI has just come along and is going to change and is changing absolutely everything. That kind of something perhaps that's hasn't been anticipated years before.
Yeah.
But later in December, as far as I remember, you learn much more about marketing, both yourself or your product or etc. in this Jeff Walker book called Launch.
Launch. Yeah.
Good.
It's meaning pressure out a product with like a to say like Apple do. They announce something is big is coming and don't tell what it is. It's a secret. It's open on this day, etc. And then it's open for 3 weeks and then it closes again. So people have to buy before the deadline,
Mm.
and it produces sales. So that's part of what. It's not the only thing he teaches, Jeff Walker, but that's part of it. And I think Morgan Housel also have this in mind, that he has found another way through the network he had with his newspaper and his the Motley Fool with his financial newspaper group. I have been member of it 5 years ago. I can't remember him, but never mind. He has an audience already who knew him, so he has spread out to a lot of people, and I think that's why he has so many copies sold. Part of it, of course, it's not 8 million members, of course, but
I think a lot of people are using that strategy actually.
yeah, yes,
Yeah, Jeff Walker. Jeff Walker is one of the most successful. I think it started with him, this approach, and he's rolled it out to millions and millions of people, and they've done phenomenally well. And it's a very specific strategy. It starts like with a sideways sales letter. It has a particular history and what he's developed and everything, but it's very clear. He also has an AI model that goes with it, so you can plug things into AI, but you can use it from launching a business to launching a book to launching a music
online,
album. It
yeah.
doesn't matter what the thing thing is, but it's a strategic process based on psychology as well. So it sort of looks at psychology, but it's also about appetite, creating appetite and things like that. So
And I think it's interesting with Jeff Walker because I bought the book. I've not joined the community because in the end I almost got so excited by the formula that I almost joined when I didn't actually want to develop a product. But I think one of the other things with Jeff Walker, and I think this is also very true for Anne, is although is him. And I think this is maybe also the difference between him and somebody like Tony Robbins. I find Tony Robbins much too kind of brash and in your face, and whereas Jeff Walker is just so kind of gentle and normal.
Yes.
And just comes across this guy who just likes going skiing in the mountains of Colorado, and was a stay-at-home dad, and then came up with this idea.
He's almost shy.
Yes. And and I find that immensely appealing because I suppose because it taps into the less confident bits of who most of us are. And that actually you don't have to be a 6'4" giant with massive teeth to be able to do well.
When I bought the book I showed you before, I got a handwritten letter. Some of it is machine written, but handwritten. So he writes out to every customer. That's amazing.
Oh, lovely. Well, I here have my personal letter from Dr. Catherine Ponder,
Wow.
from the Dynamic Laws of Wealth, who is in her 90s now, and her work is I found has a phenomenal impact on me. But I think the thing is, we're all different. These authors are all different. Different things appeal, and I think that's what's nice. It's nice to read books that irritate us. It's nice to read books with people that we find brash, or people that we find shy, or people that we find challenging, or people that we can't read enough of. And I think that's important, that we allow ourselves to go to places that are uncomfortable or provoke us in some way, because for a start, Anne, who's a multimillionaire, has found these books influential. And if we want to change our financial position, unless we're already multi-millionaires, then it makes sense to listen to people and what informs them and their recommending, and which is actually against what Housel says, because he says, don't just copy people, don't just copy Warren Buffett, don't just copy this and that, and yet Tony Robbins says yes, copy us. Anna says yes, copy us. So make your mind up about that, for instance. But I will say with Tony Robbins, I hear what you're saying, Mandy and Alison, but I had that view of him about 20 years ago, and in reading Awakening the Giant, I just felt there was such a gentle generosity and a warmth that came through with him. And I just was quite stunned with, how did I have that impression of him before? Perhaps it can be ready to listen to it. Perhaps he's changed, whatever. But it's like, for me, I just thought, and also so much of that seems to inform Anne's work. I know she worked closely with him, but there's a lot to take, I found, very particularly from that. So
this giant, Awaken the Giant Within, I've actually recommended it on my online network last month, I think, because there was something discussion, all those habits, etc. Why do I do them all the time? Bad habits, of course. So I said, I have the same bad habits, etc. But I have changed somewhat and used this book as an offline coach. So this book is if you use it as it is, an help. It's very, very, very deep.
it's interesting, isn't it, that you, Marie-Louise, would recommend that book about habits, and yet we've read Atomic Habits and you haven't mentioned recommending that. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
I found the first few chapters of Atomic Habits really interesting when he talked about, how in different scenarios people had made a huge difference. Once he got into the sort of the things that one did, that's when I just got stuck. I don't think I've actually read it, and then I tried to go back, so I realized I hadn't taken half of it in, and I just got stuck.
I think it's I hear you, and I think like with this as well, it's a bit like eating fast food. You can eat it, you might fancy eating it at the time, but then what you're left with.
Hmm.
Whereas this is pure nutrition and rich feast, personally. But whatever choice you have of the books, but you might find that some have a different effect or a different aftertaste or something that you can really sink into, or it seems these more contemporary books. I mean, I'm all, next year there's some modern ones I have in mind, very contemporary books for us to consider reading. I think it's important to have that. But I do find there's a kind of vacuousness in general with some of these contemporary things versus some of these older classics, some that came out in the 30s, some that came out in the 50s, seem to have a kind of staying power or more enduring quality, I'm finding. I'll be interested what you think or how we get on with other books.
I think it's interesting what Alison said about listening, because if I'm honest, I struggle with a lot of the older books because I find myself thinking, but that was then. But what I found I could do was I found them much more easy to take in as audiobooks. So I haven't read The Richest Man in Babylon.
No.
I
dare you, Mandy.
okay.
I dare you to read
And
it.
I got completely stuck on Catherine Ponder. I mean, that she just drove me to distraction. But I loved the Think and Grow Rich. But I listened to that driving the car on audio, and that just really, I just was able to absorb it.
Mm.
Because it was story like, and I can't remember who it was who actually narrated it. They just had a perfect voice.
I had it on CD actually.
Yeah, who was it who actually narrated it? Because it's just it goes with the content beautifully.
That's so lovely when you.
Sorry.
Sorry, Alison.
I think I've got delayed audio maybe, but I'll see if I can find it on Audible, and then it'll tell us.
On the back of my book of Think and Grow Rich, it says, "As a man thinketh.net." Does that ring a bell? It's Vic Johnson, forward here with Vic Johnson.
Okay.
I have
Might be, yeah.
I have met him in a 3-day seminar in Los Angeles, where of course Napoleon Hill has died, of course, but I met a lot of speakers, and it was very good. Bob Proctor was there, and Laura Langmeyer, also a woman into helping people get their finances in order, etc.
When was that, Marie?
Laura Langmeyer, just a second.
No, when did you go?
In 2007, I think. 2007, yes. And
I met Bob Proctor once.
I met this woman here, Laura Langmeyer, and had shaken her hands at the seminar. Laura Langmeyer, the millionaire maker, and she has the 3-book, The Cash Machine, and I cannot see the wealth cycle investing. But it's so many years ago, so I can't really remember. But
I think a lot of it is to do with I mean, because I suspect a lot of these writers are saying not dissimilar things, but it's finding the one that kind of chimes with what you feel as an individual, that I think is what kind of really makes it take off. And I think
Yeah.
and I think your point, Sarah, about it, there is and certainly for me, I think, when I met Anne, that was a total light bulb moment. Just because her personality just
Mm.
I just thought, wow, and almost not irrespective of her message, but I was able to listen to her message because of how she was,
Mm.
not who she was, but how she was. And then I actually started reading a lot more and understanding a lot more. But I think it was having something that kind of really did light that light bulb. And I think it's the same with a lot of these writers. You've got to you can read lots of them and then think, oh wow, that one really speaks to me. And that's obviously going to be very different for each individual.
I was going to say a couple of things. Are we a little bit more discerning on the Anne Money Reads after being students of Anne's and reading her book and talking about of living your life to the full, saving, taking care of yourself, but also living your life and blowing your skirt up and making all that stuff happen? Are we a bit more discerning in that? And then I should have forgotten the other bit. What was the last thing that you said there, Mandy?
About basically finding the people that chime with you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It was something else.
With Anne, it wasn't who
Oh,
she was, it was how
I
she
remember.
was. Okay.
She's also very human though. She's accessible, isn't she?
Yeah.
Whereas all these other authors, I did see Bob Proctor at an event once, and like Brendan Bouchard and people like that. But Anne is accessible. She's here, so she's telling us these great nuggets and in a very grounded, easy digestible way, and she's there in front of you saying it. You just have to read it. So does it make them feel a bit more aloof, maybe, and less connected to us?
And
I think also with what Anne says though, she not only is she who she is and how she is and what she is, but I think what she holds is a real wisdom about human behavior, about
Yeah,
financial decision making that's very universal, that's generic. And that's why, I really hope that The Welsh Chef has sold over 8 million copies at least, because it deserves to. And I think she has, particularly with the things that she chooses to focus on, that homes that we live in aren't assets, a pair of shoes aren't assets. I think she's very good at really honing in on the misconceptions that people have about wealth, and also the whole thing about making money work hard for you. She turns a lot of conventional thoughts about money and finance on their head and say this is the way it should work. There's a kind of physics really that she's describing, which I don't hear anybody else describing. Okay, she's had a model that she's put together from all the things she's read and how she's done it, but within that there are laws, and that's why, like The Richest Man in Babylon, there are laws in that about how things work. Millionaire Next Door, laws, or relationship of expenditure to wealth creation. Some of these things, like you're saying, Mandy, they come through all of the books. If we read enough, there's so many new things we're exposed to. You got there, Marie Louise, the
there's
1 Minute Millionaire.
there's also a lot of rules and guidelines in the 1 minute millionaire. Um, you said something, I just to remember it, the Atomic Habit. You said something about I'm not recommended it. I signed up for his newsletter, and it reminds me once a month, 1, 2, 3. It's called, and it reminds me of 3 things. It's easy. I can read it when I have time to read it and do. It's not a big thing. It takes 3 minutes, but at least I get memory of what I had read before. It's much more eatable in a busy day than a long letter will remind me, do this, do that, etc. So
Yeah, I get that as
and
well.
that's a
It's
very
his
positive.
as a free email.
Yeah.
And it is because it is very short, it's very easy to read and it's free. You know, it's very easy. You just send in your email and he writes to you.
It says
I
his look.
I hate fees. I love to pay a subscription for something I want, but I hate fees. So if it and um, Morgan Housel also said something about fees and subscriptions or something like that. So, so you have to have a positive um, thing about what you will pay for. Will it benefit you? So that was part of the thing he mentioned.
He says about it's basically about taking responsibility for what you want, isn't it? And owning. He doesn't really talk a lot about owning it, but he says, you know, what you want, you know, be willing to pay the price for. There's a price for what you want, so kind of be willing to it. I think he's good how he describes that. I wasn't suggesting, Marie-Louise, that you weren't recommending Atomic Habits. I was suggesting that it
Okay.
was interesting to me that you recommended Tony Robbins about habits rather than James Clear, because, you know, Tony Robbins' book doesn't say this is all about habits, yet you recommended somebody to his work, it seemed.
From point one, I have been taught by two former Tony Robbins coaches to be a certified coach. So that's 1.1. Point two, I have been at seminars with Danish speakers about habits. I have learned a lot about habits from Bob Proctor. Have followed him for years. And by listening to him over and over again from different seminars, etc., different people talking about what Bob Proctor has taught, has brought me to a place where habits is something I can change. I have habits, of course I have habits, because a habit is just the way the brain organize your energy. If it's a habit, you don't think about it, you just do it. You can drive a car and think about something else. It's because it's become a habit to driving a car. And when something happens, oh, you can steer the car out of the dangerous situation. But habits is a way for the brain to conserve energy, and you should have the habit working your way, not what your parents have taught you or your friends at school have taught you or your grandparents have taught you. You are in a very different situation now and then here in 2025. The change of the world is very different. And one of the chapters herein is about the history of money from, let's say, Second World War. I'm not quite sure, and up to now, taking a decade at time and look upon what has changed, and a lot have changed. So what our grandparents thought and delivered to our parents and delivered their those people have delivered to us their generation and what we heard from television, etc., etc. It's old. I'm sorry to say, not everything, but you have to be very precise what's still working and what's have to be done differently. And
And he
and
says, sorry,
yeah, sorry.
he says as well that we haven't really been looking at money for that long. Really, discussion around money is quite new. So, of course, we don't really know what the hell we're doing. You know, we're still figuring it out. obviously we've been working with resources for a very, very long time as humans, you know, but in the form of money and kind of modern contemporary things, it's all very new. So I think, as I say, I think if he titled his book about the history of attitudes around money throughout time, to me that would be more
Oh,
streamlined,
yeah.
with the great things that he does offer. Shall I just read out some cheat sheets, particularly for you, Mandy? If it's not going to be a spoiler alert, just to give him credit for what he has said, because we've gone on to other books, which is quite interesting. When we're discussing his, we've talked more about other books. But he says, go out of your way to find humility when things are going right, and forgiveness or compassion when they go wrong. Less ego, more wealth. What he does say, so wealth is created by suppressing what you could buy today. This word suppressing, that's not the point for me. That's not Ray Ann Wilson approach. Manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night. Increase your time horizon to help with that. Become okay when a lot of things go wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune. I thought he made those points quite well. You know, we just have to be more or less all right and survive. And if we've got the right structures in place, particularly with compounding, then that's good enough. Use money to gain control over your time. So that relates to Anne Wilson, some of the freedoms. She talks about freedom of place, freedom of association, freedom of time. He's particularly, I think he's very interested in time. Be nicer and less flashy. Well, I don't really understand that one too much particularly. Save, just save. You don't need a specific reason to save.
Yeah.
Define the cost of success and be ready to pay for it. So, Marie Louise, you're saying about the subscriptions or the fees. So, you know, the price of those fees that you're willing to. But again, with Anne Wilson, we've got, you know, really being full of life about those and wealthy spending. So, you know, the joy of that. Worship room forever, error. So a nice quote from him, a gap between what could happen in the future and what you need to happen in the future in order to do well is what gives you endurance, and endurance is what makes compounding magic over time. So there's something about this stamina through time. Avoid the extreme ends of financial decisions. You should like risk because it pays off over the time. Define the game you're playing and respect the mess. And he basically says there's no single right answer, just the answer that works for you, which is particularly, Mandy, what you've been saying. The answer that works for you, the author that works for you. But I think, you know, in terms of frameworks, Anne Wilson has frameworks that work. So whoever we read or whoever gets the message across to us, there are these frameworks that can help us and habits that help us develop and become and
I
stay
think
well.
it's the difference between just sort of having the concepts, which I think he obviously outlines, and your point about the fact that I found that very interesting at the very beginning when he talked about you know the short length of time that we've actually discussed money or had the concept of saving and investing, because actually that wasn't what people did before. They mostly because it wasn't really possible. You either had land and wealth in that way, but the idea of gaining wealth through growing money is very, very new. But I think what I kind of keep coming back to is it's how you allow ordinary people, how you give them the skill set. And I think that's what Anne does so brilliantly, is she gives, you know, anyone who is anywhere other than the breadline can improve their scenario, and to some extent even if they're on the breadline. But I think, you know, you need to be somewhere at a point where you've got some of your basic hierarchy of needs met so that you can think about it. But once you're beyond that point, you can utilize what she tells you, and you can then take off from there. So I think that's what kind of brings me back always, is the sense that it is possible, and she's focused really on the people at that point.
Abraham,
Yeah, I think just to have that knowledge of your, if you had money, what you would do with it to prepare yourself, it is such a it's it's like sitting in the car because you know when you see people driving, you have the idea of what you'll be able to drive like when you can drive your car and pass your test. So to learn about working with your money and making it work for you before you've got it, I think is because the chances are you get some, you can do something with it, even if it's a little bit. It's a whole confidence builder about yourself and self-worth in the whole scheme of money in your life. I think so even for those not with it to play with, but to learn about.
And also, if you're on the breadline and you get a windfall and you haven't sorted out the habits,
Yeah.
then you're just going to recreate that. So money as an amplifier,
Yeah.
because there's a lot, isn't there, that about people that win the lottery and then they go into debt again or whatever. It's not necessarily about the volume, but it's that relationship, the relationship with income, expenditure, assets, all of that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what stage you're at with that. It's that's important.
Yes.
So any final thoughts?
Well,
Mm.
you say, and I show you in which state I am. I have a book about that. I thought it is. I have a book I read for like people who are getting into the adult life and have no idea of anything because their parents were dealing with everything and they just you go and it's like what do I do? And I'm poor and how do I make money? And there is a book called You Are Not Broke, You Are Pre-Rich.
Oh,
Yeah, I like it.
Yes, and they start saying, what is money? What is money?
great. I need to read that book.
Yes, and it's like, where is the money going? And like, are you preparing for a mortgage? And like the things that you should do, and like budgeting, and yeah, and it's a guy that he was a financial advisor. Now I follow that yeah, it was just giving tips to people who get introduced into it, and it was quite funny. Well, not funny, like, it was very interesting to read, and the way it was written, it was very easy because it's just kind of like
Who is the author?
It's Emily Bennett. Oops, sorry.
Can you push it out to the camera?
Yep.
Oh, Amelie Bennett.
Yeah, I think she's French.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says this book is a wise investment. Yeah. So yeah, for anyone
Fantastic.
who's being introduced into the yes, what like you see, like it says things like stocks and ISAs. So yeah, lifetime ISA. Tell young people get an ISA. Because otherwise, like myself, when I moved to this country, because in Spain we don't have ISAs, it's something new. So when I came here, I was like, oh, what is an ISA? So yeah, it's kind of like a very interesting guide.
Elaine, where are you from?
I'm from Spain.
From Spain, yeah. From Denmark, yeah.
We're very international, Elena. We often have somebody
Yeah,
from Florida. We've had people from South Africa. We're international
that's
people.
good. So yeah, that's my input for the day.
Fantastic. Thank you. Right. I really appreciate everybody coming tonight to talk about these things. We've come together to talk money. Next time, just trying to find where it is. If I have it here, we have deep work. Oh, there we are. Marie Louisa has it. Deep work.
Deep work. Deep
Um,
work.
Cal
Deep,
Newport.
rules for
deep
sorry.
work.
Who's the author again?
Cal Newport.
Cal Newport.
Cal Newport. Okay.
So that's next month, November, and then December we have launch and we have our quiz. So in our quiz, so Mandy waltzed off with a prize last year. Good for her.
That was embarrassing.
No, it's clever. And we'll have another prize, a voucher, Amazon voucher, and we do a quiz, Elena. So we do the book, we meet for now, we do the book, which will be launched, Jeff Walker, and then we'll just have a short break, and then we do a quiz, which is based on all the books of the year that have gone ahead. So Mandy hadn't read all the books of Intercessions, but she could win the quiz. So I'll make the questions a little bit harder this year. But so you might fancy coming along, and you could waltz off with a Amazon voucher, and we'll see. But
And I
we
have to
have
say,
fun.
I saved it for all the books that I needed to read for the book club this year.
Oh,
So
did you?
I spent it guilt-free on the books.
That's lovely. Well, I actually spent a voucher that I got given by Anne for one of the lives, and I spent that on my towards some of my books this year. So it's nice when we can do that.
Great.
This book here this month was a short book, so I had time to read another book,
Oh,
124 or 28 pages on tyranny. It was based on the things I learned from what Donald Trump have done to the community in US. What his thought about what from his first session from 2016
Mm.
17. This is from 2017. I read it in one day,
wow.
so it's not a big read. It can be very good things to learn, to be prepared for what's coming up.
Mm.
So yeah, I read a lot
Fantastic.
of books.
Fantastic.
I'm not sure if
Fantastic.
I want to know what's coming up.
Joy is what's coming up.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
There's this
make it happen.
Timothy Snyder. If you want to find his book online or something. This is a Danish version. It's in English, but it's just so you. It's American, and because of the book, he had to move to Canada.
Says it
Wow.
all.
That says a lot about what's happening in
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
well,
Okay. Right. So we'll finish there. Before we get any more into tyranny, we'll remember the wealth and richness of life as well. And
When
thank you
is
very much.
when is the next one?
Let me
Sarah?
just check the date.
dates uh, middle of November, 19th,
19th.
19th of November.
Okay.
And that is the last of Anne's session. The launch was an extra one I put in because we had another one which we'll read next year. But yes, next month we will have completed collectively all of the books that Anne's recommended that we read. What we also do, Elena, is every year we reread The Wealth Chef. So we've read it twice together, and every year we read it again because Anne recommends to read it once a year. So we do that collectively. And what we find is we get something different from it, or we notice a different part of it, or we sink into it a bit more deeply because it's very practical and far-reaching and straightforward. So yeah, that's always going to be on the agenda once a year to help us get that accomplished. We've got it in the book list.
Kind of a manual, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think one of the many seminars in Wealth Builder, Anne has recommended those two books as well.
Yeah,
So,
that one particularly, The Gap and the Gain, is definitely on the hit list for next year's program. I'm also interested in the one thing. So what I will be doing from now and between now and the end of the year is emailing you all, and there's some recommendations we've already got from some of us all together, and I'll be proposing a schedule and we kind of whittle it down. And I'd like people, particularly that come regularly, to have at least one book that they really want us to read. So, we're feeling connected with the material that we're reading. And other ones I will follow along some of the trajectories that Anne's kind of start off with this lineage, following a lineage, like we said before, the people that informed Anthony Robbins, the people that informed other, so we're kind of deepening into this nexus really of thinking around wealth.
and be a reminder. But Sarah, could you ask Anne if she's reading a book that she would recommend in the future?
Absolutely. I keep asking Anne, does she have a further book list? I keep asking her, does she have a format for 25-year plans? I will keep asking.
Yes.
However, she hasn't got back, doesn't get back. So also she does mention things as we go along. So keep your eyes open. I'll put a thing in Wealth Builders about it too. But yeah, I'm absolutely happy to be informed by her. But also in this time when there isn't that, there are there are ideas I have about what we can look at following these trajectories, and also to have your input, which you've already given. I know, Mandy, you've suggested quite a few, and Marie-Louise, you have, and you have, Alison, too. And you know, Eleanor, we've got some, can have any from you as well if you want to contribute some ideas. And we'll just then nail that. We meet 11 times in the year because we have 1 month when we have off and we integrate and we have a bit of space. So it's often it's in August. But I think it's also important we just let the ideas integrate. And one of the books is always going to be The Wealth Chef. So really, we have 10 titles a year, 10 new titles a year.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, a lot of things to learn and read, which is exciting because I'm very into this topic as well.
Fantastic.
Um,
That's so lovely. It's
It's
so
a
lovely that you wanted to
discovery.
come.
Elena, start with this one.
I will.
Start with it.
That's yeah,
So you up
that's the foundation.
so you're up to speed with us here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'll send you some links, Elena, to Anne's work, and you know, there's some free material she has that you might want to
There's a link
join.
in the book
Yes,
to
definitely,
free
yes.
material online free material. So
Is it free? There is free material as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
there
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's very
got
practical.
there's a lot of free webinars on.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get you some links,
Yes,
and then I'll send
please.
it later on. Yeah,
Yes. Thank you very much.
yeah.
And it was lovely to meet you all.
Thanks for coming. Okay, so
Okay.
I'll stay on with you, Alison,
thank
and
you.
everybody else. Look forward to seeing you next month if you'd like to come, and December for end of year shenanigans.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
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 I'm staying.